Well, greetings to baristas. A happy Earth Day to you. And with some related good news. As the war in Ukraine closes on its second month, things are looking up for Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Um, this war from the western side has meant more blood money for the death merchants. It should be obvious that such is the real motive for Ukraine's heroic resistance. But shouldn't Ukraine heroically resist? The rhetorical question there, to baristas, is meant to sidetrack any deeper questioning as to how this war actually began. Of course, Moscow has launched an act of criminal aggression by physically crossing the border and has committed war crimes by bombarding civilian infrastructure, just like the conveniently forgotten U.S. bombing of North Vietnam 50 years ago. But the issue is that the West and the militant Ukrainian right wanted this to happen and did everything in their power on their side to make it happen, goading Russian intervention. And to use another, even older analogy, like goading North Korea to attack South Korea, so the U.S. could do what it planned to do all along, fight China through a surrogate war. Now, 70 years later, it's deja vu all over again. But this time, there seems to be no Harry Truman to restrain the Douglas MacArthur mad dogs of war of 2022. With Biden, it seems that the mad dogs are in rabid control of the White House, salivating at every chance to escalate. Soon after the fall of Afghanistan to its own Azov battalion, known as the Taliban, the Pentagon needed to do something with the backlog of materiel, now rendered useless. According to the French news agency France 24, the shoulder-fired Stinger and Javelin missiles now shipped to Ukraine were slated for original deployment in Afghanistan. The Pentagon has patted itself on the back for its express overnight delivery of said items, but the arms funneling ramped up even earlier, deflected from Kabul to Kiev without missing a heartbeat. Beginning in the fall of 2021, the attacks from the Azov battalion on Donetsk ramped up exponentially. The war in eastern Ukraine since 2014 has never ended, merely simmering and ebbing, and as long as nothing happened that could discredit Russia, conveniently off the Western media radar. The West had no operational control over the deployment of these arms once they entered Ukrainian space, and this was known and anticipated as a cover of plausible deniability, knowing that these arms were certain to be trucked cross-country to the main theater in eastern Ukraine and distributed to Ukrainian forces for a Donetsk offensive, especially for Ukraine's Viet Cong, the Azov Battalion, which is now operationally integrated as a regular military formation. The U.S. White House and Pentagon, the State Department, and NATO High Command knew what use would be made of this hardware and wanted them to be used provocatively. When Biden was predicting a Russian invasion in February, he was announcing his intent of making it happen as the attacks on the Donbas escalated. Putin took the bait as expected, from ramping up his own border forces to announcing the sovereignty of said rump republics to finally crossing his own 38th parallel. He did exactly what the West hoped and prayed he would do. The debacle of Afghanistan is now wiped clean as the West brings its arsenal of mass destruction democracy to people who really want it. But the death merchants of the Pentagon and NATO will reap their real blood harvest, not from unloading the Afghan stuff on Kiev, but from the general panic the Russian invasion has sowed through rearming and retooling all of NATO in the escalation of arms in member states like Germany, unprecedented since World War II, and hustling in brand new members like Sweden and Finland. Nor can we forget the U.S. oil and gas industry, standing to make new billions as sanctions wean Europe off Russian oil and create a vast new market for uncapped North American reserves, none of which is going to lower your cost at the pump by a penny. The media is doing its usual duty drumbeating for war, keeping NATO in lockstep as well as the general civilian public. It's World War I and Iraq I all over again, with no baby incubators so far, but the like is coming. If you look at the so-called Western war reporting, it's either talking heads spouting further rationalization for more weapons and sanctions, or tear-jerking reportage of refugee mothers with children, but no actual sense of what's really happening on the ground. And that's how the Ukrainian side wants it as much as the Russian. No one wants independent investigation, just crafting their own tightly controlled narratives, which the Western media picks up and funnels as readily as any other war contractor. How far will all this go? Like I said, there's no Harry Truman to... Whoa! I thought it was about time for that knock on the phone. Hello? Who? General Douglas MacArthur. Yes, I thought these events might bring your ghost from the grave. For our Hamilton, the White House. Denmark is a NATO member after all now. What's that? You want Joe to stay the course? Take it all the way to the Yalu? You mean the Russian border. He's got to fight the enemy one-on-one, just like your boys did the Chinese. Then what? Tactical atomic weaponry like he wanted to do in China? But that's how you lost your own job. If only you'd had Joe Biden as your commander-in-chief, we could have had atomic holocaust all the sooner and got it over with, huh? Yeah, they'd had to wait for a new post-World War II generation that doesn't know war from its own asshole. I hear you, when the whole planet is turned into a nuclear french fry, then we can bask in the warm glow of Western freedom and democracy and human rights. And global warming will take care of itself. What great news for Earth today.